He could barely get around, and he certainly couldn't run, and he certainly couldn't jump.
He would try to move around, but wasn't very mobile, and I would always heard my mom and dad say, man, if he's just able to just walk, it's a miracle.
While the rest of the Miller family played ferocious games of backyard basketball, Reggie sat on the sidelines.
Watching from the kitchen window with your mom, you know, not having the opportunity to go out there because you're wearing braces, it was tough.
Reggie's legs gradually straightened as he grew older. Eager to compete, he challenged his older sister to games of one-on-one. But Cheryl Miller was no ordinary sister. She was on her way to becoming the greatest female basketball player of her time.
Cheryl, by far, in the younger days, would just trample all over him. He was just a skinny little twig.
More times than not, we'd come to blows. Oh, and you know, Dad's coming out, don't you ever put your hands on your brother.
But as their competitions grew fierce, Cheryl and Reggie drew close. Only a year apart in age, they teamed up to hustle kids around the neighborhood in games of 2-on-2.
I asked the guys if they want to play 2-on-2. They're like, well, sure, but, you know, who's your second? I was like, oh, my sister.
And the guys would start laughing, and, you know, goes, well, you know, since you have the girl, you go first. And that's all she wrote. And then we're walking away. I'm like, now here's your cut, and here's my cut.
Reggie practiced his outside shot 500 times a day. When Cheryl's high school teammates came over to practice, her little brother began to show his stuff.
He could flat out shoot, and he would never miss. And that's how he ended up with that high arc he's got, because Cheryl would be guarding him.
Having the chance to play with these very talented and beautiful women, I mean, as a guy, you're like, yeah, sure, you know, I'll be the odd man out.
Reggie became a hotshot on his high school team. One night he scored 39 points, only to discover when he got home that Cheryl had topped him again.
He said, Cheryl, how many did you have? I said, 105. He goes, Mom! And he goes breaking through the door. He's like, it's not fair. I can't compete.
I never had a home court advantage. I was always on the road.
Reggie was largely ignored by major colleges. He only got an offer from his dream school, UCLA, after their top recruits went somewhere else.
But my heart was set on going to UCLA. Every kid in California wants to go to UCLA, but I had to wait until they came knocking.
While Cheryl was leading crosstown rival USC to a national title and winning an Olympic gold medal in 1984, Reggie struggled to make his mark at UCLA.
Reggie is hot. He's got the flow right now.
But by his second year, he was displaying his showmanship on and off the court.
Reggie Miller is wearing the Cassius Clay hairstyle and has a chest size of 2.
He could really dance. He had some serious moves.
But as Reggie blossomed as a player, opposing fans tried to throw him off his game by chanting Cheryl's name in derision whenever he touched the ball.
Every single time Reggie touched the ball,
Reggie from 20.
They would yell, Cheryl, Cheryl, Cheryl.
Cheryl, Cheryl. And every time he came on the court, they'd be chanting Cheryl, and it would drive most people bonkers.
And here's Reggie.
Instead of wilting under the pressure, Reggie soaked it up.
Reg wanted to prove that he was tough and did not want people to think that he was weak or soft because of his size or his frame or because he was Cheryl's little brother.
He's got a nasty streak about him. I wonder where that came from, you know?
Miller's in-your-face attitude rubbed some people the wrong way. But when he played pickup ball in the summer against NBA stars like Magic Johnson, Byron Scott, and Michael Cooper, they told him to keep it up.
I've never seen a guy work as hard as Reggie Miller. I'm talking about every day.
Those guys were cutthroat when they played pickup games. And all they wanted to do was win. And, you know, they were my teachers, so they share some of the blame.
In the spring of 1985, Miller led UCLA to the NIT title game against Bobby Knight's Indiana Hoosiers.
Miller with a bomb.
Scoring 18 points to drive his team to victory.
was so cocky. His team was so cocky. We had no shot of beating them in the NIT, and we smoked them.
Reggie Miller had delivered his calling card to Indiana. Before long, he would lead Indiana into battle on Broadway's biggest stage.
For three, Reggie Miller from way downtown.
Who was unleashing his wrath against me.
I wasn't psycho, but I lived a little bit on the wild side.
No small task. There's Miller. He bumps it. Great shooter, Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller had overcome a crippling childhood handicap to become a college star who was headed to the pros. But on NBA draft night 1987, he was selected by a team he'd never heard from.
The Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Well, we'll call that timely.
He's like, Indiana? Have they won anything? I said, I don't know, Reggie. Look, this is news to me because I didn't even think they had a team.
If Reggie was surprised by the pick, Indiana fans were angry. Their homegrown star, Steve Alford, had just led the Hoosiers to the NCAA title.
We were talking about a real local hero who at that time was being compared to Larry Bird and people like that. And so when we took Reggie Miller, that was a shock to the system of a lot of people here.
Opening the paper and say, Reggie who? Alfred dismayed, booing. I was like, oh God. Great. I'm on the road again.
In his first season, Miller broke the record for three-pointers by a rookie. By his third year, he was averaging 25 points a game. The better he got, the more opponents tried to break him down with punishing physical play.
And this guy would be coming off a screen, and they would hit him so hard that he would go to his knees. He'd then get up, say something to him, and hit the next three.
Reggie's a lot tougher than he looks. You can beat him up, you can knock him down, but he seems like he always gets up.
But while Miller paid his dues, few outside Indiana took notice. Friends urged him to play out his contract and sign with a better team. Reggie refused.
I was one of the people saying, hey, play for the Lakers. You'll never be a star in Indiana.
There was a lot of people telling me to go elsewhere, but I just couldn't do it. I think the character of a man is to establish something where no one else has ever done before.
Reggie devoted himself to his new home. He paid visits to local school kids, hosted a talk show for teens, and grew comfortable in a community that felt a lot like Riverside.
You could walk down the street and say, hello, how's your day? And people said hello back. I started to grow accustomed to the quiet life.
Reggie was settling into Indiana for the long run. In 1992, he and his girlfriend, a model and aspiring actress from Chicago named Marita Stavro, were married. Reggie called it the happiest day of his life.
I was young, thinking ideally this is, what you want.
Marita was everything that Reggie always wanted, and then some. And Indiana is not that far from Mayberry. So in his mind and in his heart, he's got the perfect setting, the perfect picture.
As Reggie and Marita settled into Indiana, his team began to find its groove as well. In the spring of 1994, under new coach Larry Brown, the Pacers won their first NBA playoff series. Then they won round 2, bringing Hoosier fever to a boil.
It was so loud in Market Square Arena. The city was so electric and alive. I don't know who was up next.
In a conference notorious for its toughness, the New York Knicks were the biggest bullies on the block. A team that combined swaggering attitude with knockdown physical play.
They just always thought they were so much better than everyone else, the New Yorkers. And they just thought that, you know, they were God's gift to basketball, and that kind of irked me a little bit.
With the series knotted at 2 games apiece, the Knicks took a commanding lead through 3/4 of Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. Miller was shooting poorly, and hearing about it from the Knicks' #1 fan, Spike Lee.
I hear, you know, who were on the sidelines, you know, man, you're going down, Indiana Hicks. I'm hearing all this. I'm like, okay. I want to try to shoot this ball every single time just to make a point.
Here's Miller, swings away, and hits. Reggie Miller is on fire.
Miller drained 1 3 after the next and followed each basket by taunting Spike.
It was just like he just snapped and, you know, grabbed his privates. You know, it was very public. I mean, it was, everybody saw it, and then he did that, and both those things were directed towards me.
I got tired of hearing his damn mouth. And, you know, like, you know what? It's entertainment, and you pay good money for these seats, but you ain't gonna talk to me any old kind of way.
Somehow, he was unleashing his wrath against me, that like I was playing or something.
Miller's dramatic display carried the Pacers to victory, announcing his arrival as an NBA star, turning Spike into a scapegoat for the Knicks' defeat.
I'm on the front page, me being blamed for the loss.
He is their biggest fan, and God bless him. Everyone should have a Spike Lee that's that loyal. But sometimes you gotta know when to say when.
Despite Miller's heroics, the Knicks came back to win the series in 7 games. But by the time it ended, Reggie had put his team on the map and turned his courtside confrontation with Spike Lee into the stuff of legends.
Everywhere I go in the world, people ask me, so Spike, how's Reggie? How's Reggie? How's your friend Reggie? We did a commercial together after that.
Nice shot, Cheryl.
Reggie, it's the cops. They found your shot.
Hey, you're only D in Indiana.
How do you shoot these things? They're heavy. Like the next year, you know, I did the same thing.
Looking over at Spike Lee.
Back at Madison Square Garden for the first game of the 1995 conference semifinals, the Knicks held a 6-point lead with 18 seconds to play. The game seemed all but over to everyone but Miller.
So many people that was at the game and left. I know so many players that thought it was over with on both teams. But here you had a guy that saw there was still time left.
Miller for 3, and he got it. Reggie Miller with a clutch tray, and it's 105-102. And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line.
I hit the first 3, though. As soon as I got it, I was like, I'm stepping back onto a 3. And I remember hitting that shot and then looking at Spike.
Indiana went on to win the game and the series, cementing Reggie's reputation as New York's biggest nightmare.
I was right there in disbelief to see his victories just evaporate.
No one else likes New York. I mean, they might say they do, but no one likes New York but New Yorkers. So I feel that I was helping out a nation.
Although the Pacers lost the next series in 7 games, Reggie Miller had become a heartland hero. But a sinister crime would turn that triumph to ashes.
It was like the towering inferno. It was nothing but flames.
You can hear the hurt in his voice. You can see the tears in his eyes.
It made me think, is it all worth it? And I really didn't think it was.
Two classic playoff series with the New York Knicks propelled the Indiana Pacers to the top ranks of NBA contenders and transformed Reggie Miller into an Indiana icon.
It was great to watch his pitch on the side of the building. Great to watch the way that people embraced him because he worked his tail off and he deserved it.
Now it's flip-flop. You know, it's, aren't you Reggie's sister?
Miller made the All-Star team for the 3rd time as the Pacers surged towards the playoffs in 1996. But less than 2 weeks before they began, His luck ran out.
In the clock, the turn and gun is off the heel. Mark West rebound. Wow.
Miller went to the hospital with a concussion, a sprained neck, and a fractured orbital bone near his eye socket that required surgery, and put his future up for grabs.
He was really scared that not only would he not be able to get back, or maybe even play again.
I thought the orbital was going to affect my vision. And obviously, being a shooter and shooting from long distance, that's your livelihood.
It's just flashbacks of when he was a little kid with the braces on, because he's having difficulty walking. He's like kind of, bobbing and weaving, and, he doesn't have his balance. And I'm like, oh man, not again, not as hard as he worked.
But as Miller watched his team struggle from the sidelines, he vowed to return to the court. 22 days later, with Indiana facing playoff elimination, he did just that, risking his recovery to keep the Pacers' hopes alive.
People talk about Willis Reed limping out of the locker room. Well, here's Reggie Miller talking about his eye.
I thought he was crazy because he was taking it to the goal against big players.
That is a technical foul.
And he just did it with abandon.
Went right around him and rolled it in. Reggie Miller. All eyes on Reggie Miller. He's shown us today the heart of a lion.
Though the Pacers lost the series, Miller's stature grew. He helped the U.S. Olympic team win a gold medal in the summer of 1996, taking his place on the victory stand beside his fellow superstars. But when Reggie returned to Indiana that fall, he was quickly knocked off his pedestal. The Pacers and Miller played poorly throughout the season.
Oh, man, just missed it.
And when negotiations for a new contract bogged down, the fans showed him little sympathy.
His game was off. He wasn't playing at his best. Shots weren't falling, and I think a lot of that had to do with the turmoil that he was going through off of the floor.
While Reggie was struggling with the Pacers, his wife Marita was trying to launch an acting career in Hollywood. Their long separations and career conflicts took a toll on the marriage.
She was a city girl from Chicago. Really never liked Indiana. She was in different places, I was in different places, and people grow apart.
As the Pacers stumbled through the season and Miller's contract dispute dragged on, the mood in Indiana got ugly. Reggie began to receive anonymous phone calls at his home.
He's getting death threats. People are talking about if you don't sign whatever they want, using the N-word, nigga, we're gonna shoot your dogs.
I really didn't appreciate some of the messages, especially for someone who I felt I was giving my all to Indiana. I always feel if you treat people the way you want to be treated, there shouldn't be no such thing as racism. And unfortunately, there is.
And now I'm hearing him tell me that, you know what, Cheryl? Maybe I need to go.
In an effort to sustain their marriage, Reggie and Marita bought a large, elegant house on the lakefront in Indianapolis. By May of 1997, they'd moved in their belongings and were preparing to move in themselves.
He's desperately trying to do everything to hold on to some semblance of normality, because everything else is chaotic.
In the early morning hours of May 15th, while Marita was working in Los Angeles, a phone call at his old house woke Reggie from his sleep.
I remember getting a call at 4:30 in the morning. There's a fire at your house. I'm like, no, there's not. I'm at the house. I'm at my house. He's like, no, your new house. I'm like, what?
As Reggie drove toward the house, clouds of smoke filled the sky. By the time he got there, the blaze was out of control.
So I see all the smoke. I see all the helicopters out there. I mean, it was like the towering inferno. It was nothing but flames. I'm thinking, oh my God. I mean, what is this?
Hamilton County authorities say the intense blaze that destroyed Pacer guard Reggie Miller's home was no accident. That the fire that brought down the $2 million home on Geist Reservoir was arson caused.
They're saying that's arson, but how do they know that I was not in there? That could be potential murder.
I can watch him standing on, the freshly burnt wood, trying to figure out why would somebody do this.
Is it because I'm black? Is it because of the contract? Is it because, the team's not doing well? What did I ever do? What did I ever do to these people?
And all this contract negotiations are going on, and I'm like, someone's burning down my house. Do I really want to stay here in Indiana?
In the weeks that followed the fire, no arrests were made, leaving Miller plenty of time to ponder the motives behind the crime.
You started to get the copycat letters with people saying I did it. It made me sit back and start to think, is it all worth it? And I really didn't think it was.
Miller told Pacers GM Donnie Walsh that he planned to retire and leave Indiana. But while Reggie was still ruminating on his future, he got a phone call from the Pacers' new head coach, Larry Bird.
He understands what I'm going through. He would respect any decision I decide to do. But he says, but I'm just going to say one thing. This city and myself really need you.
My thing was, I was just telling Reggie that we need to get this franchise back on its feet. He was going through a tough time, but it seems like time heals all wounds.
And this is Larry Legend, one of the greatest athletes of our time, telling me, who hasn't won, we need you here.
Reggie Miller would put his faith in Indiana one more time and lay his reputation on the line against the greatest player of them all.
I knew he was the best, and everyone knew he was the best, but I thought that I could better him.
Jordan. Right now, Chicago's going for blood. They smell it.
You want to do well, and I'm not doing well.
Really, we're two different type of players, but when the game's on the line, we both wanted the ball.
With Bird at the helm, the Pacers took off, and Miller took over. He nailed game-winning shots 14 times during the regular season, then led Indiana into another playoff battle against New York.
Miller from way downtown. Milligan goes, tips out, picks up Mullen, kicks it to Jackson. Miller, a wide open three. It's good! It's good! Miller ties it with 5.1 remaining.
A couple seconds left. Everybody and mama knows Reggie's gonna get the ball.
And as the ball was in the air, Reggie was wide open. The entire garden went, oh, no!
Okay, it's time to go home, Spike. It's over.
The Pacers were back in the Eastern Conference Finals, this time with a chance to dethrone the 5-time champion Chicago Bulls. And for Reggie, the chance to go head-to-head with Michael Jordan.
This is what I've always been waiting for, to go against Michael. This is what I've always wanted.
For more than a decade, Miller had been squaring off against Jordan on the court, sometimes coming up short, but always stepping up to the challenge.
Reggie always went out and competed with him. And you could tell because Michael would get angry at him.
Now Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller having a go at it. And I mean, we got fist throwing. Here come the benches.
Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird were the three biggest trash talkers in the history of this game. But they were also three of the best to back it up.
I wasn't the best athlete, the fastest, the quickest, jumped the highest. That wasn't me. Do I think I can play with the best of them? Yeah.
But when the 1998 conference finals began, Michael Jordan seized control, leading the Bulls to 2 victories in Chicago.
The other way. Michael spinning, shooting, and hitting.
To make matters worse, Miller sprained an ankle in the third quarter of Game 3.
You're playing, Chicago Bulls on a national stage.
He was not going to let Michael know that, he wasn't 100% physically.
Playing through the pain, Miller scored 28 points to lead Indiana to victory.
It's Reggie, and it's Indiana.
Then, down by a point with 2 seconds to play at the end of Game 4, Pacers put their hopes on Reggie's shoulders.
The ball to Indiana with 2.9 seconds. Harper's on Miller. McKee gets it into Miller for the win. It's there. 0.4 seconds.
I was jumping, and I'm like, oh my God, my ankle's hurting, but who cares? I just hit the shot.
One of the greatest clutch performers of his generation.
Revived, the Pacers pushed the series to the limit.
Miller for 3.
Taking a 6-point lead in the fourth quarter of Game 7. But just when it appeared that Indiana might dethrone Chicago and make it to the NBA Finals, the Bulls roared back to win.
Michael to Pippen the track.
He truly believed that they were going to eliminate the Chicago Bulls. I mean, the shock was that they didn't.
But we should have won. We had it. Game 7, we had it, and we blew it.
Miller's frustrations weren't over. The next season, Indiana was beaten in the conference finals yet again, this time by their nemesis, the Knicks.
History has just been made. The New York Knicks are the first 8th seed to ever make the NBA Finals.
Desperate to get his team over the hump, Miller spent the offseason in 1999 working harder than ever before.
He's trying to put a little more weight on. He's lifting weights harder. He almost became obsessed with the fact that he hadn't been able to get over that hill. But after 9 trips to the playoffs, age and injuries were wearing down Miller and his teammates. When the 2000 playoffs began, the Pacers stumbled and were pushed to the brink of elimination in the first round.
With the shot clock at 2-1, elevates, hits it right there.
If they would have lost in the first round, they would have been, considered just a complete flop.
Rallying his teammates before the decisive Game 5, Miller laid his reputation on the line by donning a Superman t-shirt as he entered the arena.
I said to myself that it was going to take a superhuman effort, and what could really get things riled up than me out there wearing the Man of Steel.
Then, he played like him, scoring 41 points to save the series. Reggie was on a roll. He led the Pacers to victory over Philadelphia in 6 games. Then it was on to New York for the Eastern Conference crown. The one final showdown against the Knicks.
Miller against Freewell. Steps back and delivers another 3.
I made shots in that game I probably will never make again. Step back threes and up and unders. And
Miller for 3.
Timeout. I've never seen a guy stay focused and stay with it as well as Reggie did.
The Indiana Pacers on their way to the NBA Finals for the first time in their history.
I don't think I've hugged my teammates any tighter. I don't think I've cried any longer.
Here was a guy that's been an underdog his whole life, and there was always somebody maybe a little faster, a little bigger, a little more athletic, and he couldn't quite turn the corner. But finally, Game 6, in the Bullies' backyard, Reggie Miller won that fight.
Miller had taken Indiana to the NBA Finals for the first time in their history, only to encounter the heavily favored Los Angeles Lakers. But Miller refused to let his team go quietly. He rallied the Pacers with emotionally charged performances, averaging 27 points in the final 5 games. But in the end, the Lakers' all-star duo of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal proved too much, defeating Indiana 4-2 and bringing Miller's season of triumph to a bittersweet end.
You had little Superman against big Superman. And his T-shirt just wasn't powerful enough to beat Shaq.
Yeah, it's good when people pat you on the back and say it was a competitive series, but bottom line is there's no jewelry on your finger. They've got the jewelry and you don't.
Reggie Miller had taken his team as far as it could go. Back in Indiana, he still had one more score to settle.
It's something that I don't think he will ever really recover from because it's in his mind.
Because you don't know if there's someone out there that just doesn't like you for you.
After 10 trips to the playoffs, Reggie Miller had finally made it to the NBA Finals. But once the season ended, Larry Bird left as coach, and several top players were traded or retired, ending Indiana's reign as contenders and leaving Miller the task of starting from scratch once more.
I was devastated. We had just come off a very taxing 6-game finals loss to the Lakers, hoping at a chance to go at it again, and everyone's gone.
Reggie was starting over in more ways than one. His marriage with Marita had gradually crumbled. After years of putting on a facade for the public, their divorce became official in April of 2001.
No one ever wants to get divorced. Everyone thinks it's a curse. So I probably stayed, truthfully, 4 years longer than I should have.
The arsonist who burned Miller's home to the ground in the spring of 1997 was never found. And though Reggie rebuilt the house, the mystery behind the crime has left lasting scars.
To this day, we haven't found out what the hell this is. You'll get your occasional letters every 6 months. You know, remember me? It's the not knowing that's killing me about what happened.
But Miller channeled his pain in other ways, raising money for the survivors of the New York firefighters who died during 9/11, and helping child burn victims through the Reggie Miller Foundation.
It's finishing the play. This thing tried to beat me, and I'm going to go into the core of what this thing is, and I'm going to make a difference.
You guys got brothers and sisters? Cats and dogs?
I just have a dog.
What's your dog's name?
Has a heart for kids, and he understands that. That, you know, if it wasn't for some serious grace imparted to him, you know, he could be one of those kids he's visited.
Miller is mentoring a younger generation on the court as well. On a Pacers team filled with up-and-coming talent, he's become Uncle Reggie, a battle-tested veteran from the old school.
Uncle Reggie is special to the Indiana Pacers. You know, he's been here for a while. He's like a father figure for everybody.
I think he definitely wants to help the younger guys on our team, and I think he will help these guys reach their moment in the sun.
Play the right way. If we play the right way, guys, we can win. But that's the hard part, is channeling what you know to a younger generation.
By the summer of 2003, Reggie Miller was nearly 38 years old and a free agent with one last shot at the brass ring. But despite offers to join more proven title contenders, he chose to finish his career where it began, in Indiana.
I wasn't just gonna go chase a championship and jump on someone else's bandwagon. I just couldn't do that.
For being such a shrewd businessman, he was real stupid about Indiana. And I would have preferred that he went somewhere where he could win a ring. I mean, that's what he really wants, but he's loyal.
Away from the court, Miller lives a low-key lifestyle that suits his surroundings, making time for old friends and old-fashioned pleasures.
Reggie's really boring off the court, extremely boring.
Very low key. He's boring.
Chip away.
No, he's not shy. He's just straight up boring.
I consider myself a Hoosier at heart. They've accepted me, I've accepted them. I know we are a year and a half behind most big cities in fashion and culture and everything else. music, everything. We're always behind the times.
Across, Miller for three. Oh, he banked it in!
Reggie Miller beat the odds to become one of the great clutch performers in all of sports. He showed his courage and his character by standing with his team, his franchise, and his community when it mattered most.
Reggie Miller is Indiana. There's a time when you could have said Bobby Knight. There's a time when you could have said Larry Bird. But over the last 16, 17 years and counting, Reggie Miller has been the show.
He's the type of guy that you would want your kids to grow up and be like. Everybody knows, loves him. And they should, because he's a special person.
We're scared of losing. We're afraid of living life. We're afraid of taking that risk. All of us. That's why mankind, likes the Reggie Millers of the world. Because you know what? He is not afraid. He's not afraid to fail. And that's truly why we play athletics.
In professional sports, you're living in the moment. And that's what I love about it. Just give me the ball. I don't care how old I get. Give me the ball.